this little thing is thermal grease. You have to put this on the processor. What this serves as is a membrane between the heat sink, which is this here, which is pretty much a computer radiator, and the actual processor, because the processor at a normal operating temperature can get up to 300 degrees. So on this we're going to put the fan facing where the RAM slots will be, which this is where the memory goes. Don't put too much pressure, but you just want to make sure that grease gets smeared around, because this is very vital in the life of a computer. Because a processor is the main thinking object in this. Then you take these spring screws. This is what you fasten the heat sink to the motherboard with. It keeps pressure on the processor so that it stays as cool as possible for operation. And the biggest thing to remember whenever working on these types of components is brawn is not always best. So a good hand tightening of most anything on a circuit board will be adequate. Okay, like I said, these should only get a good finger tightening. As long as it's secure, which you can kind of check it, it means it's firm against the processor, which you can see through that little crack. And this is the installation of the processor, the heat sink, and the cooling fan. If you see these little gold pieces, these are actually nuts that on one side is threaded to go into the actual case. And what the purpose of these is to elevate the motherboard so that all these little shiny electronic components will not touch metal and short out. This is the back of the motherboard. This is what everybody sees, is where you plug your monitors, your mouse, all that in. This will go to the back. Now each motherboard you buy will come with one of these. Custom fitted to the actual motherboard you buy. So now we're going to place this in. And depending on what type of motherboard, before we fasten it down, if you buy a custom case, if you have a form factor, Flex ATX, ATX, or Micro ATX, or any others, all these holes are numbered, and it will actually tell you what holes to put these in so that it will fit up with the motherboard fastening spots. Alright, we installed the new motherboard. We've hooked up the CPU fan. And anytime on a motherboard it will have it labeled for CPU fan and then auxiliary fan. Now what we're going to do is we're going to place the new RAM. And you can see this is a Kingston DDR2 1 gig. So that means with 2 sticks we're going to end up with 2 gigs of RAM. Anytime, this computer will have Windows XP on it. Anytime you're using Windows XP, no matter what version, you're gonna, if you put anything over 2 gigs of RAM, it will not be utilized. 2 gigs of RAM is pretty much a maxed out for Windows XP. But you can see the notch in the slot just gives you the correct way to put it in. You line the notch up with that little tab there. So we're gonna put the RAM in, you push it until it clicks. Just lets you know the RAM is securely in that spot. Alright, as I said before, when we installed the heatsink, we put the CPU fan blowing toward the RAM. And what this will do is, because of the heat of the processor, as I said before, it can reach up to 300-400 degrees, it will be pulling air away from this as well as the RAM to keep the heat off of this, so we don't have any kind of a meltdown or malfunction of any sorts. The next item is the power supply. This is a Cooler Master. It's a 460 watt, which is well adequate for any normal everyday computer. The way you set this up is you have 4 screw holes. You have 3 that is toward the corners, and then you have 1 that's sort of out of place. This lets you know which way to put this in. So this screw hole is toward the top of the back of the tower. So we're going to install it this way. To install this, you see a ledge here and here. This is what helps support the power supply until you actually get it fastened into place. Anytime you buy a aftermarket, if you want to call it that, power supply, you're going to have a lot of connectors that you really don't need. So, and the second thing, the reason we went ahead and installed the RAM is once you start plugging the power cables in for the motherboard, as well as any other components, these get a little messy. So that's why you install pretty much everything you can up before you actually install this. Okay, this part of building the computer, we're going to put in a new DVD drive. You see this one has light scribe, DVD multi-recorders, which means it's a burner as well. An RW means that it can read rewritable CDs, and just the regular compact disc rewritable, which means it can rewrite a regular CD. Now for this particular case, it comes with several toolless installation pieces. What this works as is like for a disk drive, like this one, you see the holes on the sides, and then you see the little prongs on this thing. What you do here is you just simply push them into the screw holes. And a lot of the new cases are like this, just for hobbyist that likes to play with computers, or just to make it easier on a computer shop like me. Then all you have to do is simply slide it in, and it locks into place exactly where it's supposed to be. These wires on the case, which like we said before is a custom case, this is for a FireWire, which is a high-speed data transfer cable, USB 2.0, microphone, and speakers. So we're going to route these through here. Pull the case back up. Then these are as well as toolless, so you just pretty much have to pop it in. this is what you should be looking at in a similarity when you get done installing all of your components. The only thing missing in this one, as you can see, is the hard drive, which we said at the first of this video we're actually cloning one to make it identical to an existing computer, just with updated parts. But as a rundown, you have your power supply, your motherboard, your heat sink. Right behind it is your processor. You have a 120mm cooling fan which pulls the hot air out of the case. This fan, which is your processor fan, which pulls air through this, keeps it cool, similar, like I said before, like a radiator of a car. All your wires are plugged into the correct spots. It's kind of hard to make the wires look neat, but you can use sticky backs and tie wraps to kind of keep them out of your way so you can see a good view of your inside of your case.